So now I am delighted to introduce our newly elected San Luis Obispo County Clerk-Recorder, Elaina Cano. So she's going to have to stand here a minute while I give a brief introduction. Elaina is a dedicated wife, mother, and grandmother. She was raised in Riverside, California, and moved to the Central Coast in 1992. She and her husband, Marty, have raised their 3 sons in San Luis Obispo and have been public servants for 27 years. Elaina had her first hands-on election experience with the city of San Luis Obispo as a temporary worker in the city clerk's office. Since then, she's been honored to serve the cities of San Luis Obispo and Pismo Beach as their city clerk, as assistant clerk recorder in San Luis Obispo County, and elections division manager for Santa Barbara County, and now, of course, as the newly elected San Luis Obispo County clerk recorder, having received over 61% of the vote in the June 2020 second primary. So Elaina's been at this for 17 years, where she has assisted in conducting elections for various jurisdictions, and we're so pleased to welcome her today. Her commitment to public service stemmed from an admiration for those that are brave enough to lead, not only at the national level, but importantly at the local level. She is committed to ensuring public access to her office's many functions, as well as continuing to conduct elections with the highest level of transparency and integrity. Thank you, Elaina, for your service, and most notably with voting in elections, the cornerstone of our democracy. And with that, I will turn over the podium to you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Thank you so much. So good morning, everybody. It is an honor to be here with you. My very first time with the League of Women Voters presenting after all of these years, although I have admired this organization for so long. So thank you for inviting me to be here. Just wanted to touch base on a few things in regards to election and changes that have happened and why changes have happened within the last couple of years. The COVID pandemic had certainly put a strain on the way we conduct in-person voting. In 2020, as you know, we had emergency regulations imposed by our governor because of the risks of having our standard practice of conducting elections at the polls stay the same. So at that point, emergency regulations went into place. All registered voters were had received their ballots in the mail, and we were still able at that point to offer in-person voting opportunities as well. Well, now, fast forward 2 years since November 2020, the state legislators have now adopted those regulations, and that law is now permanent. So from here going forward until the law, should it ever change again, we will all active registered voters will receive their ballot in the mail prior to all elections. With that being said, however, they did not change the law in our requirements to how we conduct our polling places. And so we still have to have at least about 60 polling places staffed with over 600 volunteer poll workers, just as we did when there was 30, 40, 50% of poll voters. So it's still a challenge, and to put that into perspective, for the June election, we only had less than 3,000 voters even go to the polls, as opposed to, the thousands and thousands that we've had in years past. So that didn't mean that voters did not turn their vote-by-mail ballots in on Election Day. 50,000 of them within 24 hours turned their vote-by-mail ballots in. So yes, so elections are turning just a little bit as far as the way our processes go. Luckily, we do still have our volunteers who are committed to working at the polls, to ensuring that your ballots and your votes are safe and secure on Election Day. So for those of you, I know that the league is quite involved on Election Day with adopt-a-polls, and thank you for doing that, because we certainly, we cannot do it without you. We put our time and effort for months and months and months, and then we hand it over to you on Election Day and wish you the best of luck and say, bring us back our ballots after 8 o'clock. So, so thank you for those that do participate in that. And then just to touch base a little bit, I know that security of our elections is always a hot topic, so kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. I do know that I believe I will be speaking before the league again in October, specifically on security of the elections process, but I did want to just touch base on it right now for you. So I do take the security of all of your votes very, very seriously. All mail ballot envelopes, when you get them, if you see that there is a unique barcode that is specific just to you that is on there, we verify all of the information that is on that envelope, including your signature that you have given us, either by your voter registration card or form or any other document that would get to our office if there was correspondence back and forth, or of course your driver's license. Your signature at the DMV and on your driver's license is connected to the voter registration system. My staff and I, we go through signature verification training with an expert forensic document examiner who is a graduate of the U.S. Secret Service Question Document course at Homeland Security Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. I did have to read that because that was a big one. This extensive training allows us to recognize some of the characteristics that that may have changed over time since you had first filled out and signed your voter registration card or even your DMV, your driver's license. So we make sure that we compare all of the history of we can pull up your voter registration information and pull up the history of your signatures. So every time you have signed something, we have record of that. So it's not just a one signature to one. We have multiple signatures of yours if you have them on file with us. And we compare it to all of them. In addition, there are times that if the first review of the signatures is questionable, then it goes through a multitude of different signature checks. So all the way up, typically I am the last one that will verify or validate that signature. So, so it's not just a one person that's looking at it. There are multiple people who are reviewing those if need be. In addition, the voting system technology that we do use during the elections must be certified prior to us using it. California has the most stringent laws in the country. So we go above and beyond what the federal government requires for voting systems to go through in order to be used here. So all certification documents, we do use Dominion, and all of the certification documents, all the security documents, everything is up on the Secretary of State's website and available for the public to take a look at. At both the state and county level, there are a multitude of layered security protocols in place. We not only work closely with our county IT security team, but also at the state level, we work with the Secretary of State's office and their Office of Election Security. On the federal level, we work with the Office of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the FBI. We all work around the clock to ensure the safety and security of elections and of your vote. In addition to the DMV, we also have to check other agencies in regards to your eligibility or voters' eligibility and run against their information with our voter registration information, such as the California Department of Corrections. We collaborate with them to make sure that the voters are eligible and not a felon. California Department of Public Health, they are the ones who inform us if there is a voter who has been deceased. California Employment Development Department, we get information from them for national change of address. So if somebody should move, we get that information through them. So we collaborate with a lot of different entities, agencies. We're always in meetings. We're always collaborating together, and it's really a partnership with not only the 58 counties in our state, as our Secretary of State's office, but also at the federal level as well. Our processes in election are open and transparent as it gets. We allow observers to come in and observe the elections processing from the moment that the ballots are starting to be processed in our office and received in the mail, to signature verification, to when we open and we separate the ballots from the envelopes, to ballot tabulation, to the canvass, 1% manual tally, our logic and accuracy testing, all of that is open and available to the public. So we do have volunteers and observers that do take advantage of it. We would welcome you to witness democracy firsthand and the security. If you have any questions whatsoever on how it looks, we call it a fishbowl because we literally have our voting system where we're tabulating and running the ballots secured in a location in our elections, very small elections office, where you can actually see the ballots getting run through the machine. And then once they become adjudicated, they get shown on the monitors, and you can actually see what the adjudication boards, how they are making that determination as far as voters' intent. So please, if you're interested, let us know, give us a call, and we'll give you a rundown of what the activities for the day is going to be if you would be interested. So just a little bit of a recap for the June election. Out of the 58 counties, and despite the low statewide turnout, so we can all recognize that for whatever reason, we had a very, very low turnout for the June election. San Luis Obispo County came in 12th highest. Now, out of those 12, there is only one other county that had 170,000 registered voters. We have about 181. It bounces between 181 and 185. Everybody else has, the lowest one is Alpine, and Alpine County has 917 registered voters. So they should have come in first and had 100%. Everybody else had less than 75,000 registered voters. So despite how low our turnout looked, we did very, very well. Even from our neighbors to the south, Santa Barbara County, they were in the 30s, and everybody else kind of trickled down from there. So still very proud of our voters who did indeed turn out. Once we, of course, finished certifying our election, we were then faced with a recount for the District 4 supervisorial contest, which took us 5 weeks to prepare and conduct. And I am so proud of our team that, for those that don't know, we had 100% accuracy on that recount. It's incredible. I am a mom and a grandma, and it was just like my children, where I was just so proud of them. And because it takes a team, from the moment those ballots are received to making sure that they're scanned correctly, that the way they are adjudicated, every step of the way made that 100% accuracy come to light, because it's not often that happens. More often than not in a recount, there's usually a handful of votes that may not equate to what are certified results, and that's because of the adjudication process. When you have the adjudication board, they're looking at monitors and they're trying to determine voters' intent. Well, when you have the recount, you have the recount board who actually physically has that ballot in their hands. So they may make a different determination on voters' intent than what the adjudication did. But because of our training and because of the explanation and the guidelines that the state provides us for counting standards, they were all on the same page, and they weren't even the same boards. So very, very proud of my team that we got through that, and that's behind us. However, what that did was that overlapped into our November processing. So once we certified the election within 10 days, we were already preparing for the November candidate filing. And the redistricting for over 21 jurisdictions that used to be at large that are now district-based. So we had our state boundaries done, we had our supervisorial boundaries done, but now we have 21 different jurisdictions from schools, cities, special districts, community services districts that now we had to chop up everybody even further down. So what does that mean? Well, luckily, we'll only have one ballot card for the November election. There will not be two. Phew. The ballot card will be much longer than the June. So June was only a 14-inch. These are the details, right? The 14-inch, and now we'll be at an 18-inch. So, but it all fit. It all fit on one. Overall, we had 160 contests that qualified to be on the ballot, but only 69 will. And why is that? Well, that's because there was enough candidates that came forward that there were seats open. So that means that they don't necessarily have to go onto the ballot. They just get appointed in lieu of being in the election. Our office assisted 200 candidates from all these jurisdictions, and 151 of them on our ballot. There will be 7 statewide measures or propositions, 6 local measures, 70 ballot types. So that's what my staff is doing right now. I left them at the office to finalize that. We have 133 consolidated voting precincts and 59 polling places, and we are currently in the process of doing the recruitment to staff all of those locations. So that's in a nutshell what we've been doing, and but as you can imagine, right now is such a difficult time to be an elections official in this country across the board. But I became an elections official because I believe in democracy with all my heart. And I won't leave election security to chance. I trust our voting system because it was independently tested and certified in detail. And elections are run by communities. They are our friends, they are our families, they are our neighbors. And our passion is to help all SLO County eligible registered voters to cast their ballots securely. It is an honor to be your county clerk-recorder, and I look forward to serving you for the next 4 years. Thank you so much.
Ed, not yet. Ed. Okay. Not yet, Ed. We have some Q&A for, I neglected to invite you to write questions on if you have questions for Elaina, there's cards on your table, and we have volunteers to pick those cards up. I actually can start with a question, and I'll go ahead and read it to save you the trouble of doing that. Elaina, if you could give one example of the kind of questionable ballots that caught the attention of the election denier group.
Well, so those that questioned our ballots themselves, they were pretty consistent in what they were questioning, which were not eligible to even be challengeable. They were challenging perfectly marked ballots, fully bubbled in, And their challenge was that they did not believe that a human being actually filled in that bubble. So they would challenge that those were identifiable marks, which they were votes, and the voters at that, followed the instructions. And so I want to say all of them that were challenged during the recount anyways. The recount, there were 10 challenged ballots, and all of them were perfectly marked, perfectly bubbled in. There were no identifying or disqualifying marks on any of those ballots.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. Is the signature verification conducted on all ballots? And thank you for your excellent work.
Well, thank you. Yes. Every vote by mail envelope with your signature or a signature on it is verified even before we open it. So if the signature does not match, if there is no signature, or if the signature is, so we'll stop there. Those two situations, the envelopes don't get open and the ballots do not get processed. It's not until those envelopes or those signatures are cured that we will then remove the ballot from the envelope and then process it and count it.
Okay, next question is, can you talk about the process to handle damaged ballots or ballots incorrectly filled out?
Yes. So damaged ballots, we get them all the time. We are required by law to have a duplication board that consists of at minimum 3 people. There will be one person who holds the damaged ballot that will relay the vote of the voter, the choice. There will be one person who marks it on a new, fresh ballot, and then there is an observer there that is witnessing that the person with the original ballot is calling the correct vote, and that the person who is marking on the new ballot is actually marking the correct choice. And there was another part to that. Was there another part to that? Okay.
I think that was it. Are the signatures on the roster verified?
No.
Have you or your staff received threats, and what security needs, if any, do you require?
So threats and violence against elections officials are becoming more and more apparent. Have I personally been threatened? No. I haven't heard personally that I am not safe, or my staff. However, there is a law that is before, I believe, the governor right now, who will allow elections officials and their staff to become a part of the Safe at Home programs, which means that our information on voter registrations will become confidential. That's one way the state is trying to help us. I work very, very closely with each one of our local law enforcement agencies, as well as our sheriff's department. On election day, they all know where every one of our polling places are, how many poll workers are there, and all of our ballot boxes. Our sheriff, I am protected on election day with a multitude of undercover law enforcement officers that are around our building. Because like for the June election, we did not leave until almost 3 a.m. And so, and we're parked in the garage underneath, and so I feel very safe here. I have a great relationship with local law enforcement, but yes, we're just trying to be extra cautious with the threats that we know that are out there.
Okay, I think you can hear me, can't you? Okay, without the mic, because I hate to keep grabbing the mic. Do you anticipate any security problems at the polls on October 8th?
I hope not. November 8th, yeah. Do I anticipate any security? Yeah. Do I anticipate anything happening security-wise at the polls in November? No, I don't anticipate it. Could it happen? Certainly, I suppose it could. In our poll worker training, we try to emphasize the fact that if there is something suspicious, if you see it, if you don't feel good about it, your first line of attack there is to call local law enforcement. That is why I have our safety plans in place with each one of them. Even if they come out and there's nothing, and that's okay. They're okay. That's their job, is to protect us. So I hope that nothing happens out at the polls, but of course I can't put everybody into a bubble.
Okay, over time, as I age, my signature has changed. How specific is the verification?
Well, we recognize that, and in our 6 hours of grueling training with our top guy there, we look for other characteristics that it's interesting because even when there's shakiness in somebody's signature, they still have the same characteristics as though they had, in their original signature. We look at it upside down, we look at slants, we look at loops, we look for all kinds of similarities in the signature. If there is a question, we will send out a letter and ask that you provide us with a current signature. And once we get that back, if that signature then matches the signature that's on your VBM envelope, then we go ahead and accept it. We then scan that new letter with your new updated signature and attach it to your voter record, so that then becomes another one of those signatures that we can verify with.
Okay, I'm going to say this is the last question so that we can move on with the program. You mentioned there will be 70 ballot types for the November election. Would you provide an example for us, please?
Certainly. So not everybody gets to vote on every single one of the contests. For example, somebody in Napomo won't be able to vote on Cambria Community Healthcare District's candidates. So what we do is, because of the redistricting, we have to make sure that you are voting on, depending on where you're living, what the contests that are on the ballot that you are eligible to vote on. San Luis, we have school districts, we have the city of SLO, we have the outlying areas as well. So there are ballot measures from Morro Bay is on there. San Luis Coastal has ballot measures. Arroyo Grande has ballot measures. So it depends on what's on there. If it was just a statewide, for example, the easiest election we've ever done was the recall. Why? Because everybody had the same question, and it was statewide. We didn't have to worry about the districts or the divisions in which the voters and their precincts lied on. So the 70 different ballot types, it's our entire county that's broken up from Ground Squirrel Hollow Community Services District to the county, to the state, to federal. So.
Okay. Thank you, Elaina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.